Sorry.
Welcome to the DevelopmentAid online webinar session. Our host today is Elizabeth, and we are excited to have you join us. We strongly encourage active participation in our discussions, and all participants who stay until the end of the event will receive a certificate of attendance via email 24 hours after the webinar. To ensure that everyone can participate, all cameras and microphones are automatically muted. You can submit your questions or comments via the questions section on the screen, or participate in the polls during the event to let us know your opinion. We look forward to an engaging and insightful discussion. Enjoy.
I'm Elizabeth, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar on how to submit a competitive proposal when you're new to the market. Today's discussion is part of our ongoing series of webinars organized by DevelopmentAid, where we explore topics relevant to the international development sector, from understanding funding opportunities to mastering proposal writing. Our aim is to provide valuable insights to our community. Before we dive into today's topic, let's take a moment to engage in our first poll. We hope that you found our previous webinars informative, and if you haven't had a chance to join us before, don't worry, I'll be happy to share the links to our archive sessions with you. And now let me just introduce our esteemed speakers for today's webinar. So we have Yusuf Al-Mustafa, the CEO and co-founder of Trust Organization, which brings over 2 decades of experience in the humanitarian and development sectors. With a track record of overseeing more than 70 projects in monitoring and evaluation, needs assessment and research, Yusuf is a seasoned professional. He has trained over 1,500 M&E and humanitarian professionals in the MENA region and beyond. We also have Edna Onyengo, the proposal writing team leader. She offers over 12 years of experience in gender protection, rule of law, and access to justice. With a successful track record of leading the development of more than 120 M&E consultancy proposals across multiple sectors, Edna brings valuable insights into proposal writing. And we also have Veronica Talamona, the proposal writing junior officer. She plays a crucial role in the development of proposals for M&E projects in the humanitarian and development fields. Actively involved in various monitoring and evaluation assignments in Syria, Veronica brings a fresh perspective to our discussions. Let's just have a look at who is attending today's session. And as we can see, 71% of our attendees are actually representing consulting firms. 15% come from NGOs, and less people from academic, construction, and supplier backgrounds. Thank you, Yusuf, Edna, Veronica, for joining us today. And without further ado, I'm going to allow you to start your presentation. Veronica, you should have the panel now.
Can you see my screen?
We see your presentation, yes.
Great. So welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. We are very happy to be here in collaboration with DevelopmentAid to present the topic, how to submit a competitive proposal when you're new to the market. So first of all, let's have a look at the structure of this presentation. I will briefly talk about us, Trust Consultancy and Development, and then my colleague Edna will move on to challenges when submitting a proposal. We will then provide our advice and apply this advice to our own experience, seeing how Trust got its first 3 assignments. We will then summarize the key points to take home, and we will have time to answer questions. So let's see if I can move on. So about Trust. Trust is an international consultancy established in 2016. We are based in Turkey and Pakistan, and we have satellite offices in Iraq and Yemen. To date, we have worked on 170 projects, and our vision is to become a leading third-party monitoring and evaluation and capacity building firm in the Middle East, North Africa, Turkey, and South Asia region. We provide a variety of services, including quality third-party monitoring and evaluations, needs assessments, research, various kinds of assessments in terms of protection, risks, market, value chain analysis, capacity development, and translation. And now, Edna, please, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, focusing on how to submit competitive proposals when you are new to the market. For today's session, we'll start with more or less talking about the key challenges that most firms face when submitting proposals. And then we'll also have discussions around what are some of the strategies that you can be able to put in place or develop to ensure that you stand a higher chance of winning a particular bid or you submit a competitive proposal. Later on, my colleague Yusuf will touch on more or less how Trust, got its first few projects, and of course, then we'll wind up with a question and answer session. Hopefully, we'll be able to complete this within the required timeline. But if not, then of course, Elizabeth and her team will be able to take your questions, and we can be able to answer them at a later stage. Just to also clarify that this particular presentation is focusing on submitting proposals for M&E projects and not grant-related proposals. But either way, we also hope that through this session, in terms of talking about some of the challenges faced, you will be able to take home a few tips, because I believe that whether we submit proposals for M&E projects or you submit grant proposals, we more or less face similar challenges when when we are new in the market. So maybe to start with, it would actually be great to get to know from you what are some of the key challenges that new companies or individuals face when submitting their first proposals, or even with relatively emerging firms. What are those challenges that you have been able to face in the last couple of years when you've had to submit proposals for projects? So I think this can be addressed, or please provide your response in the chat box. I think we have the wrong question, Elizabeth. Yeah, please just indicate your response in the chat box.
Okay, we have some answers. So the first challenge is justifying experience. Showing experience of a firm even when the staff have one. Compliance requirements. Strict deadlines, missing kit or requirements, lack of expertise. Challenge of having the first references. Align with the budget. Bigger competitors always score higher because they have more case studies. Pricing competitively but fairly. Challenge of having a good team. Meeting and addressing criteria correctly. Pricing it right. Turnover is too small. Addressing the pain points of a client when you don't know them. Responding to all selection criteria. Governance issues. I think those are all for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I see that we've had a couple of noted challenges, which of course include compliance requirements, strict deadlines, lack of a good team, and responding to all selection criteria, among other challenges. So we'll probably also share with you what we came up with as part of challenges that, of course, we as a firm have gone through in the past, as well as challenges that most of you as firms or individual consultants always face when you're new to the market. So we'd start with the lack of experience or history. This is normally a key challenge, and more so for a new firm that doesn't have much experience or limited experience, and especially, for example, where a client requests for context or country-specific experience with, for instance, 2 to 5 years or 5 to 7 years minimum experience in implementing projects in X locations can be a major challenge. Sometimes also clients, require experience, for example, in emergency contacts or related to a particular sector, or more so, for instance, if they require previous experience in similar assignments or with similar budgets. This can be quite difficult to meet, especially when you're new to the market. Another challenge would be the lack of brand recognition. This is a challenge when no one knows your establishment or firm, or your work experience or services that you offer, or in instances where you have a limited budget, it becomes difficult to market your firm or your services and make this known. So you eventually miss out on great opportunities in terms of consultancies or projects, just because no one has heard of your firm or has heard of your previous experience. The third challenge is related to time and resources. You find that when you lack resources or time, in the form of human resource or capacity or financial resources, then it becomes quite difficult even to bid for a particular, tender. Some clients, have particular requirements. For example, they make payments at the end of projects, and some also make payments based on each project deliverable. So as a new or small firm with minimal resources, it can become quite challenging to bid for this, because first of all, you don't have the experience, you don't have the resources in terms of human resource or the finances. You don't have enumerators on the ground or even team members on the ground. So it becomes quite challenging to be able to meet some of these requirements. We also have clients who request for the submission of bank statements or financial statements or even financial reports. So this becomes quite difficult also to meet, especially when you're new to the market. The lack of credibility is another challenge that is faced by most entities. It's quite difficult to establish credibility when you're new, and it becomes quite difficult also to convince others that they can trust you and that you are up to new challenges, that you are able to take up new projects and you can deliver on the same. Whether it's a TPM assignment, whether it's an evaluation or needs assessment, or simply just to collect data, it becomes quite difficult when nobody knows you or no one knows of your experience or have never heard of your establishment. We also have another challenge, which is meeting the client's requirements. Different clients, have different criteria, and this also widely varies per client and per project. Most of the time, based on previous proposal submissions or the TORs that actually dealt with, you find that clients have different selection criteria that, for example, include number of years of experience or sector-specific experience or team composition. Many at times, again, it depends just on what the client wants. We have clients who are more focused on team composition, while we also have other clients who are focused on number of years of experience for that particular consultancy firm. So it just depends on what each client is looking for. In the case of Trust, we've been able to deal with different clients, and so we are able to know exactly what are the needs of each client and how can we be able to better meet these needs, whether it's through a team composition, whether it's showcasing the number of experience we've had in different MENA-T and South Asia countries, or whether it's sector-specific experience. So when you're new into the market, then it becomes quite difficult to meet all these criteria, because then you are lacking or you're limited in terms of resources, as well as work experience in these requested or required sectors. Finally, it also becomes quite difficult to know what is the right or correct budget to submit, especially in cases where the client does not provide you with a budget limit. We've dealt with clients, who provide a ceiling of XX, USD or XX amount of money, and we've also dealt with the clients, who do not provide, a ceiling in terms of what do they expect in terms of a budget. So this normally becomes quite difficult to anticipate, to know exactly, what are the costs that you can be able to provide for this particular project. So I think I've touched on a few of those examples. Please note that these are just a few examples and are not quite comprehensive. I am sure there are lots of challenges that firms face. So these are just a sample of the major challenges that are faced by firms, and also that we as Trust faced at the beginning, that we thought would be great to share with you all. Moving forward, in addressing some of these challenges, what kind of strategies can we come up with in place to ensure that then we are able to meet some of these requirements, or to ensure that we can be able to submit a competitive proposal. Veronica? So the first strategy would be to start with the small projects. When you start with small projects, it's more about trying to get yourself out there, regardless of the size of your firm or regardless of your experience. So you always start with small projects. As Trust, we also began with small projects, and over the years we've been able to build our track record with every project that we've been able to implement. So it's always good to start with small projects when you're new to the market and nobody knows in terms of your services that you offer, or nobody knows your work experience or even your brand name. The other strategy would be, it's quite important to establish connections. This could be through bringing on board new partners. In many cases, you find that based on, again, where you're applying for a particular project, you find that some of these locations are very hard to access locations. Let me give a very good example of Trust. Of course, we work in the MENA-T region and South Asia, and you find that in some locations where we don't have, let me say, we don't have offices or branches, then we normally, network with partners on the ground. We establish new contacts with partners in these regions, in these countries. So then we have, we have partners in Lebanon, we have partners in Afghanistan. So it just depends on where your focus is in terms of where you'd like to focus. In terms of your M&E, work and experience. The other thing is that also, other than just having a partner on the ground, it's also important that it's the right partner. Because you'd find that in as much as you have a partner, some partners, have their niche, they have their particular expertise. Some partners have expertise strictly on the education sector. Some, implement, like multi-sectoral projects. So it just depends on the kind of partner that you get, but always ensure that you have different partners that have key strengths in different sectors or even multi-sectoral projects. It's also important to ensure that the partner that you select has access to all the project locations, because this also plays a key role in terms of meeting some of the requirements that clients normally request for in terms of X number of years of experience in this area, or access to XX region or sub-district or location. It would also be good to establish a network. For example, when you're trying to find out, do you meet the, like the team composition requirement? It's always good to, reach out to, technical consultants who have different kind of expertise, because then they are able to, support you in terms of implementing, different projects. So I was just checking if I'm on track. They would, support you in terms of implementing different projects, and also not to forget that some of these technical consultants have previous experience with different organizations and clients. So they are best placed to provide input into your proposal, because they know X client and the selection criteria that XX client uses, when selecting, the best, the best proposal, or the best, value for money proposal, or the best, or the most competitive proposal. Next slide, please. Just one moment. Then the other strategy, of course, in terms of establishing connections is, to make yourself known to the client, and this can be done in different, multiple ways. Of course, one of them would be, for example, to conduct, like free of charge trainings for the for the particular client, including other different entities and organizations. We are all aware that it can be quite difficult, and it can also be costly to be able to conduct trainings. But I think what is most important is that we are looking at the bigger picture in terms of trying to create a rapport and build your network, a network of clients, as well as network of like-minded organizations and entities. So it's quite important to ensure that you have ongoing trainings that targets prospective clients or clients that you are interested in. The other thing also would be, for every project that you're able to implement, it's always good to request the client for a reference, because this goes a long way for your next project, or when some of the requirements involve submission of references from for past projects or previous projects. So it's always good to ensure that for every completed project, then you have a relevant reference, and whereby clients are not able to provide this, then ensure that they provide testimonials, which you can always be able to upload on your website. It's also quite important when establishing connections to also ensure that you also engage in social media platforms. Promote your entity, your institution, your organization, your consultancy firm. Promote the kind of services that you offer, because many a times you find that these are the kind of platforms that you'll be able to get in touch with clients, because then if you're able to present what you offer, if you're able to participate in trainings, or even engage in conversations, or or provide feedback, then for sure it's a starting point in terms of clients being able to recognize your work. Yusuf, would you like to add anything? No. Okay. Next slide, please. So finally, when you're submitting a competitive, financial proposal, it's always important to look at the bigger picture in terms of, as you mentioned previously, we are starting with a small project, and with a small project, of course, means a small budget. I know that, many firms have begun with small projects and small budgets, and over the years build that up to like to multi-million projects. So it's always good to accept proposals with losses, provide a small budget, but also but also having in mind that this particular loss is part of a marketing strategy for other future prospective projects. While also submitting proposal with a lower budget, you can also try and figure out in terms of your expenses where this can be reduced, whether it's in terms of whether it's in terms of the fees for human resource, whether it's expenses related to field data collection. So overall, if you submit a proposal that has a smaller budget, then I think it's a starting point in ensuring that you stand a higher chance of being selected by a particular client to implement a particular project. So always start small, with the aim of eventually having a much bigger projects to implement. I think that is it from my end. Moving on forward, before I hand over to my colleague Yusuf Al-Mustafa, we have a second question, which will be a poll. And the question is more or less, which key strategy would you adopt, or do you normally adopt most when you're developing a competitive proposal? So we have provided a couple of options there for you. Would just be great to know from your end, which of these strategies do you normally adopt as an institution or as a firm? Thank you.
Dear attendees, please engage into this poll. We are going to give you a few more seconds, up to a minute, to answer this poll. I see that our attendees are actively voting. I'm going to give you a few more seconds before I close the poll, and I'm going to share the answers with you. So perhaps Edna can elaborate a little bit more on the answers, or just. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating in the poll. Here are the answers that we've got. As you can see, most of the people's 47% answer of our attendees answers that they actually use all of the above. Then the second majority is building a strong team. 15% establish and leverage connections. 10% focus on small projects, and only 7% include competitive financial offers.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Just to go back on the poll, I think a most plausible response would be all of the above. In as much as we have different components that we adopt as as consultancy firm, I think at the end of the day, all the above are equally important. For example, you might focus on small projects, but you do not have a really strong team. So it's just quite important to have a strong team, because half the time when clients have minimum requirements for each assignment, then There are some clients who focus on the team composition, and normally during the selection criteria, they award very high marks just on the team composition. There are some other clients who focus more on the financial offer, so you'd find that they offer, it's let me say 70% on the 70% on the financial offer, on the technical offer, and then 30% on the financial offer. At the same time, also establishing and leveraging connections is equally important. As I previously mentioned, when you establish your networks in terms of like-minded organizations or entities, you're providing trainings, or free of charge trainings to different, clients that you're targeting. Or if you enhance your brand through various social media platforms, then all these play a huge role in as part of a strategy in that supports you in developing a competitive proposals. So there's no one answer. All of these components, including others, are equally important to be adopted at the proposal writing stage, to ensure that you submit something that makes sense in terms of gauging your understanding of the terms of reference or your capacity to be able to take up that particular project. Another thing is that when you have a strong team, that then means that you're able to meet the criteria. And of course, when it comes to implementing a project, some of the important things that clients look for are, are you able to meet the, meet the deliverables? Are you able to meet this within a required time frame? So when you have a good team, then it means that you're able to meet all the deliverables within a particular required time. The other thing, again, with a strong team, you find that then when you're collecting data or even developing methodology, then you find that with a strong team, they're able to provide input and strengthen the content, for example, of the final report for that particular project, or even provide input into the data collection tools. So overall, all these different strategies, go a long way in ensuring that you're able to submit a competitive proposal. Thank you very much. Over to you, Yusuf.
Thank you very much, Edna. As we said, it seems that participants used different strategies at the same time. So here I will just go back to 2016 when Trust Consultancy and Development started and established in Turkey. The first project, in fact, we had with one of the previous employers I used to work for, and it was IBTCI. This is International Business and Technical Consultant based in USA. Because I understood third-party monitoring, and this is the core business of our consultancy. I understood what is required, how to provide high-quality data, reports, etc. So started from there. I already have had good relations with this employer, good reputation as well, and then we submitted a proposal, and it was approved. In doing so, this project was really good because we used to have about 10 site visits every month, meaning that we could cover all our operational costs. And this is very important when you start a new business. If you are able to cover all your operational costs, this is really great. A second project was with people in need, and this was small, and also our financial offer was very competitive. And always when you select small opportunities, this means that you compete with similar consultancies. Big ones, large ones, they will not compete for small projects if they are short-term, if they are small amount or contracts, for instance. And we submitted our proposal, very competitive financial offer as well, and the client got back to us. This is higher than our budget. It wasn't high, but higher our budget. We negotiated many times, and then we reduced our budget by 50%, again, because they didn't have enough budget. And here there's a very important point, in fact, when you submit a financial offer and it is very competitive, Sometimes it gives a wrong message that because they don't have enough budget, this means that the quality of this proposal or assignment will not be good. So you need to be very cautious about your financial offer. And this happened with many other consultancies. I remember that because their offer was very cheap, they were excluded from the shortlisting, for instance. Why? Because they said it will not be possible to cover this cost. But it is very important also point when you have a very competitive financial offer and they negotiate with you because they don't have enough budget. Try to see how you can reduce your cost, for instance. Can you reduce the scope, for instance? Can you transfer any expenses to the client? In our case, they're monitoring, for instance, services. Maybe they provide you with free venues for focus group discussions. Maybe they collect data. Maybe they provide transportation, etc. So always, when you have financial offer, I mean, not that great, try to see how you can reduce your cost and how you can transfer some of the expenses to the client side, and they accept in case they don't have enough budget. Usually, when you negotiate with them, they accept such alternatives. And the third one was with we partnered with a company. I used to work for them as a consultant, as a freelancer. I worked for this third-party monitoring company in 2014, so about 2 years before our company was established. And because we had also good relations with them, we offered them that we have access to the context where you don't have access to Syria that time, and we partnered with them, and we had, I think, maybe 3 or 4 good projects with them. And thanks to this partnership, we could recruit more people, experienced people as well, because we need to write good proposals. And it was also a great opportunity for us to transfer knowledge to our team. Always when you partner with large companies, with really very good experience, so this is a great opportunity to learn from these partners. So these are examples of the 3 projects we had. The first year, when we established Trust Consultancy, we could get these assignments. The one with IPTCI, this was really great, and with people in need also, because we showed them good quality work. We had many assignments with them. So almost every few months, we had an assignment with people in need. And usually it was with higher budgets as well. I would like here to highlight a very important thing also. When you have opportunities to network with different potential clients or partners or consultants, try to do this, because our capital as consultancies, we don't have equipment, we don't have buildings, we have human capital. So if you have really very good human capital, you can submit successful proposals. Next, please. Yeah, here back to what has been mentioned by Ilya. Start with the small projects. Again, because at least you compete with similar companies. Large companies will not compete for small things. They are busy with other things, I mean, much larger and also longer in terms of term. Highlight your selling points. Here, I would like to highlight also 3 things. When we started our business, we wanted to network, to promote for our activities, the core business, third-party monitoring. We established capacity development department, and capacity development department, the training, this is really a great tool for promotion, because you network with participants from different NGOs, different donors, governments as well. And this was very helpful for us. Of course, it doesn't give you any revenue as training, especially in the beginning, but it will give you revenue in the long term, we can say. And this was really a great opportunity for us to build good relations and to promote about our activities, monitoring and evaluation in the services. Hire an external experienced team. And already mentioned by you, always when you have really very good team, you can submit successful proposals, and if in case they are successful, you can manage them successfully as well. Here, try to find people who already have experience with your potential clients. In case you focus on international NGOs, try to find someone who work for such type NGOs. If you would like to apply for opportunities with donors, try to hire someone who already worked for donors as well. Post your experience and expertise, already mentioned this one, establish connections. And again, here, networking. You need to understand your stakeholders with whom you are going to work as staff, as partners, as clients, and try to build good relations and connections with them. Competitive and realistic financial offer. As I said, this is the easiest one to do, and most new companies, they try this one. So it is not that easy to compete with others when you compete only with financial offer. You need to have a mix of other factors, as already mentioned in the poll from your answers. You use usually different strategies, but competitive and financial offer. Sometimes there are some offers, some assignments designed for individuals, even not for companies. And if you are new to the markets, I do encourage you that you apply for these things, because again, otherwise you will not have history, you will not have first projects or assignments. This is all from our side. We don't know if you have any questions. We are open to any question related to what we have presented, related to usually consultancies. It is, as Edna said, this is not a grant proposal, but these are commercial proposals, could be for training, third-party monitoring, and other types of consultants. Over.
Thank you so much, Veronica, Edna, Yusuf. And we are moving into the Q&A session. Please, everybody, feel free to share your questions and insights in the chat. And we actually have a question that is related to the poll that we conducted earlier. And the question sounds like this. Based on your experience, what would you say could be the reason why only 6% of the respondents focus on a competitive financial offer?
I think only financial offers, only competitive financial offers, again, because it is easy to use by the majority. So if you only rely on this strategy, you will not be successful. You need to rely on other strategies as well. I don't know if Edna, you have any other answers.
No.
It is simply, it is the easiest strategy.
Okay, so we got it. It's just because it's easier. And the next question sounds like, what is the importance of making the proposal visually appealing? Ours is currently technically sound and quite dense. The content is solid, but it's not exactly an easy read. What is your sense? Is this a barrier? Does it matter at all?
Maybe to just respond to that, again, it depends, because we've actually had, when we have new terms of reference from different clients, you find that every client has different requirements. For instance, we've had clients who request for a maximum or 2 pages or 5 pages of a proposal. So it becomes quite difficult, to include, other, content with this kind of limited number of pages. So again, it varies. Whereby you have limited pages, then it would not make sense to include this. But where there's no page requirement, then yes, it would definitely help, if you're able to have this component within your proposal, because then it kind of provides, in a nutshell, what your firm is all about, the number of projects that you've been able to implement, and sector that you've been able to deal with. So it depends, and it's on a case-by-case basis, again, based on each client's requirement.
Thank you. And do you need to have a piece of insider of information? How do you know the available budget for the project?
Normally, from my experience, what happens is that, again, it depends on how you engage with each client. We've had clients we've worked with for several number of years, so we are able, for example, in our list of questions, to ask them, could you let us know what is your ceiling in terms of the budget? Many a times the clients do not respond to this question because it's meant to be a competitive process. So then what happens is that, since we are familiar with this particular client, And so then we are able to know, the scale within which the budget falls. So that is how we are able to submit a competitive, proposal based on our familiarity with a particular client.
And if you win multiple projects that require pre-financing, how do you deal with this situation? Do you take a bank loan or ask the client to pay in advance?
Maybe just to answer a small company, then I'll just hand over to Yusuf to address the rest. But normally, what happens is, as I mentioned before, we have clients, who make the payment at the end of the assignment, and some, make the payment based on each deliverable. So then, I guess it's just a matter of the kind of project and what the client, is offering in terms of, the payment terms. So it varies again, but I'll maybe hand over to Yusuf to shed some light on this.
Yeah, it is case by case, in fact, and generally speaking, depends on the conditions of the client. We are fine with that, and you need to find your own resources from your network, in fact, to cover any expenses until you are paid. And later on, it doesn't matter if they are late or towards the end of the project itself, because you have good financial resources. You need to comply. You need to meet the needs of the clients and their conditions, in fact, because they have their own policies, SOPs, etc., and we are fine usually in these cases.
Thank you. And what about for starting businesses like bids expecting reference? Would the director's previous experience be any help?
Yes, in fact, always most clients, they ask for references, for history, etc. This is why we said it is, in case you don't have, as a company, if you don't have history, try to use the history of your team. This is why it is important to hire experienced team, project team members. You can cover this. Another alternative to partner with another company. The other company will meet these requirements. So it is you can play around these things, in fact, in case you don't have history or references.
Moving on, could you please elaborate on how to establish visibility with clients when you're a first timer in the industry, and how do you overcome the perception that a small budget equates to poor quality work?
Again, in fact, when you have a new company, if you are well known as a founder or a team, you can mitigate this risk. Because if they don't know the company, it's a new, and if they don't know people who are working in this company, it is not easy to trust this company, even if they have good budgets, not only very cheap budget. So you need to rely on your team, people, and also relations and your network, so you can mitigate these risks. Otherwise, it is not possible.
And shifting gears, in the scenario where you are approached by multiple companies for partnership opportunities, how do you go about selecting the most suitable partners?
This is a very interesting question, especially recently, as you know that localization is a trend, and there are many international companies, they are approaching local companies simply because some organizations and donors, they prefer local consultancies and local consultant as well. So always depends on your needs and your market as well, and the company itself, in case you have people who are working for this organization or company or that, for instance. It is not that easy, but always, given that of course the international companies, they will not compete for small ones or new ones, usually for well-known ones. If you are small, you will not have this choice, or you will not enjoy this until you are well known, and then after that they will compete for your services or partnership.
Thank you. And regarding project success, from your experience, which countries have been most fruitful in terms of winning projects? Is it primarily local projects, or do international NGOs projects also play a significant role? And what advice would you offer to newcomers?
Always the very local projects, simply because you are familiar with the context, the language, the culture, expenses, cost, etc. So always start local, and if you'd like to have international reputation or assignments, it should be gradual and through partners as well. As a local company, always start in your country. I give you an example. For instance, the highest percentage of our projects from Syria, and followed by other countries, Turkey, Iraq, and we have few assignments in Yemen, Libya, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, Lebanon. Always focus on the local market first, but still the likelihood to win much higher than in other contexts.
Thank you. And speaking of proposal writing challenges, another area we often find difficult is creating timelines. It seems that some clients are comfortable with using generic months in the timeline, while others prefer more specific dates. Do you have any suggestion or best practices for navigating this discrepancy?
Yeah, maybe I'll respond to this one. The thing is that, also as we observed, as you mentioned, we have, clients who have, generic timelines, and some actually who are much more specific. So normally our approach is that whereby, the particular project is not feasible to be completed within the particular time frame, then we reach out to the client and ask them if they would be willing to be a bit flexible with regard to that particular, timeline. So it kind of also provided an opportunity for us and them to, kind of negotiate on more or less on that timeline. And we've had some very, very flexible clients, who say that, this is more or less a guideline, but feel free to come up with what works best for you. Sometimes also we had clients who have been very, very, strict with particular timelines. So you'd have a project that should be done in a whole month, but it's not feasible. So what happens is that sometimes we kind of abide with these timelines in terms of when submitting our work plan. But then if we win that particular project, then it gives us a chance again to negotiate with the client to see if they could be just a bit flexible, but also we kind of justify why this would not work for us, and maybe provide other options that is more feasible in terms of the time of the time frame to complete a particular project. Over to you, Yusuf.
Yeah, in fact, when we receive any tender, any TUR, it is analyzed by our team. We have Veronica, for instance. She is one of those who analyze terms of reference, and when it comes to time, we have different choices. The first one, maybe we drop this TUR because, again, it is not possible to prepare proposal, and even it is not possible if it is successful to manage such a project. So we get back to them if they are flexible or not. In case they are not flexible and they insist that this is the deadline, and some of them they publish their TUR and they say even deadline is yesterday, meaning that they are in a hurry, and so it is not possible to apply for such opportunities, and we prefer to do. Another very important point, and this is also good for consultancies, but maybe not for the very new ones, because it does require a lot of money. So we have about 20 to 30 team members. They are full-time or part-time. So meaning that we have good resources, and always you have a tight timeline. You need to rely on to mobilize more resources. And we have these resources, but this is not the case of all consultancies. So this is one of the strategy we have whenever we have tight timeline and it's possible to mobilize more resources without affecting the quality, we go for such opportunities, usually because and competition will be less compared to others, because not all NGO, not all consultancies, they are in a position to take such opportunities under short notice, and also they don't have enough internal resources, and always external resources, they are more expensive than internal ones. So this is one of the strategies we have in Trust to take such opportunities when it is possible and it doesn't affect the quality.
Thank you. And speaking of proposal elements, do you believe it's essential for all clients to provide a financial cap for projects rather than leaving it an open-ended? And following that, as a proposal writer, how do you perceive the importance of balancing a well-written, persuasive proposal with the design, branding, and overall appearance of the document?
You are mute, Edna. Unmute yourself.
I'm sorry about that. Maybe to respond to the second question first, as I previously mentioned, what is most important is to be able to understand exactly, what are the client's needs. If you don't understand, our terms of reference, then it becomes quite difficult to be able to put that in writing, which will then, translate to a very, very, quality proposal. So that is, you must be able to understand a terms of reference or what is the client requesting of you in terms of a project to be able to come up with a good proposal. What was the first question again, Elizabeth?
Yes, sure. 1 second, please. Do you believe it's essential for all clients to provide a financial cap for projects rather than leaving it open-ended?
I think that, that quite varies because then, for example, when you're new to the market, then it becomes challenging for you to know exactly, what kind of budget should we be able to, provide. So when you have, for example, a ceiling, then, it kind of puts you within a bracket, so you know exactly what budget to submit. At the same time, what most clients, when clients have a budget ceiling, it just means that is, the maximum amount of money they can be able to invest in a particular, for a particular consultancy. But at the same time, when there is no cap, it also kind of allows for competition between, different consultancy firms to be able to see, for example, who submits the best technical proposal that makes sense in terms of, a proper breakdown of how you're gonna undertake this particular assignment, as well as, value for money financial proposal, which then meets, for example, a particular client's expectations. But again, it depends on what the client is looking for at the end of the day, whether it's whether it's a value for money proposal or if it's a quality proposal, despite the financial aspect of it. Over to you, Yusuf.
Can I just add quickly to answer the first question? The second question, which you answered first, in terms of like how to design the proposal and how to balance like the persuasiveness and the technicity, like the technicalities of the actual way you write the proposal and how it looks. I think what is useful in terms of like our experience as well is to have a template that we keep updating and that is clear, consistent. Of course, like it seems stupid to repeat, but you need to be sure that you don't make typos, that you look at the small details, especially if you use a template. Often you might use this to apply for the same, like for different clients, for different proposals. You need to make sure that you change the name, that you adapt the specific terms, which you may overlook while you are in a rush to submit it. So I think it's really a balance of like finding a good template that you can use that is visually appealing and clear and easy to read, but also making sure that the content is consistent and well written.
Thank you, Veronica. Unfortunately, Yusuf has to leave, but maybe Veronica and Edna agreed to stay for 2 more questions before we finish the webinar. Thank you, Yusuf, very much for taking part in this webinar and sharing your experience with us.
Right.
And dear participants, we're going to take 2-3 more questions before we finish this webinar. And the next question is, speaking of initial experiences, is it common for businesses to encounter losses in their first or second projects as they aim to gain experience and establish a track record?
Well, I think it's a common experience for any kind of businesses, whether it's a consultancy firm or a private business. You are always bound, to encounter losses at the onset because you're kind of trying to market yourself and, make your organization or your firm be known by different entities and clients. So it's a common experience.
Thank you. And additionally, is there a method to determine if a request for proposal already has a specific firm or a team in mind, but is simply aiming to fulfill the requirements of receiving a certain number of bids?
Well, that's a very difficult question to respond to, because normally it's quite difficult to know if a particular client already has a particular consultancy firm in mind. But what I know from experience, again, is that it just depends again on your network of, your network out there, whether it's with clients or it's with other firms, because also you find that among consultancy firms, then sometimes you find that through different networks, then you're also able to know that maybe a particular bidder, would be preferred over another. So it's just again back to our network, our network and resources, and trying, to see, for example, if this particular, and more so, especially when we have very, very competitive, tenders. Also, what we do is that we normally ask the client, for example, for this particular tender, how many bidders do you expect to shortlist? If it's an expression of interest, we also ask the client, how many bidders do you intend to retain at the end of this process? So normally this information is given to us by the clients in terms of the number of bidders that they intend to retain at the end of the process. So that's pretty much the info that normally we get from clients. But to be honest, it's very difficult to know if they have a particular bidder in mind. But then again, maybe I'd just like to mention that, for example, where like in the case of Trust, we've had so many numerous projects with with different clients. So you find that in some cases the clients will approach us directly to implement a particular project without having to go through the bidding process. Or in cases whereby we have a framework agreement, then in such situations, then they request us to submit a bid, and this again comes down to, for example, within a framework agreement, they normally select maybe up to 3 bidders, and then for each particular assignment or project, then they request these particular bidders to submit their proposals or offers, and then based on this, they are able to shortlist and give the tender to the winning consultancy firm. So it varies a lot.
Thank you very much for such an ample response for us. And maybe our last question for today. Speaking of proposal strategies, is it advisable to present proposals in partnership with other organizations?
It's actually a good strategy, because then I was just kind of trying to think of our kind of partnerships in the past couple of years. So it's a very good strategy, because more so if you're a new upcoming consultancy firm, or you're a new consultant, or even a new organization that is trying to submit a grant proposal, it's always quite important as a strategy to partner with another entity that maybe is well known or has a number of years within a particular sector or area. As we previously also mentioned, it just depends, because again, with the entities, it's also, or the partnership, it's also good to be quite clear in terms of expectations from each organization, whether it's a partner or you. But most important, despite having a partner, what is key is that they should have the relevant experience, like ground experience, from the local community, because then, as Yusuf mentioned, more clients are now focusing towards localization. So it's very important that you find the right partner to be able to, submit a bid with.
Thank you so much, Edna. And before we conclude, I want to extend my gratitude to Yusuf that just left, Edna, Veronica, for sharing your expertise with us today. Your insights have provided invaluable guidance on submitting competitive proposals, and especially for the newcomers to the market that joined our webinar today. And dear attendees, if you have any questions left, please don't hesitate to reach out to me via email. I'm going to send them to Edna, Yusuf, Veronica, and they are going to reply in the meantime. Thank you all for attending this event, and special thanks to our speakers for their valuable contribution. I wish you all a wonderful afternoon. Goodbye, everyone.
Having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.